Yes, welcome to a very special edition of the People Sports Podcast, an NFL Draft Spectacular. The NFL Draft is going on this week, and Charlotte, what version of the mock draft are we up to with you? Are you on? Is this mock draft version 25.7 for you? Are you where? How are you working through your mock drafts? Where are you at?
Well, Mark, I have like a really scientific process, and I start out every mock draft I start actually has the same player at every pick. It's Trevor Lawrence 1 through 32. And from there, I kind of like rework it, and I'm like, does that seem realistic? So I think I'm up to like mock draft point 1.115 right now. That's what I'm working on.
1.5 point dash. It's like the mock draft is. This really is like one of the great times of the sports calendar that I take for granted. I don't realize how awesome NFL draft season is till it comes around. I would never, if we did like a show in August, say, and we were going over like our favorite times of year in sports, I would never ever think about NFL draft season. And then this happens. And oh my God, I love it because everyone who's making content about the NFL draft is playing a different game. There are some people that are legitimately trying to guess what is going to happen and say, I think the teams are going to do this. I'm well sourced. Here are what my sources are telling me. There are other people that are saying, I don't give a damn what the teams are going to do. I'm telling you what the teams should do. If the teams were as smart as I am, here's what they would do. There are agents of chaos out there who are just like, I'm just going to like throw a stick of dynamite in my mock draft and try to get clicked. Like not even trolls. I guess like they're not trolling. They're just like, who cares? This is all stupid anyway. This entire
it's NFL draft nihilism, I call
it. Yeah. I mean, I've seen recently. There's a new thing that happens in mock drafts now where you do mock trades, and I guess like this is something that people have been asking for.
Wait, what?
And we are the People Sports Podcast, so if the people want it, I guess you have to do it. But it breaks my brain, Charlotte. I'm not advanced enough. I'm not an analytics guy enough to know how this works. But there are mock drafts, Charlotte. Well, they will say, like, in my mock draft, I have the 49ers trading the third pick.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, why would you do that if you're a mock draft?
I do feel, though, that's like that's become an integral part of mock drafts.
Yes.
Like, you can't, I think that sports media people, first of all, I think that I agree with you. I forget how jacked up I get every NFL draft season. I'm like, I want to read all of it. I think it's hilarious, but I also think that it is the most galaxy brain time of year for sports media people because they are projecting things and then second guessing their projections and then reverse psychologying themselves to the point where if they feel like they don't have a trade in their draft, they are somehow going to look stupid to the other people who do.
You're a simpleton. Yeah.
Right. People will say that like women dress for other women. And I think that it remains to be seen whether that's true or if that's sexist. I don't even know at this point. But I do think that mock draft guys and girls make mock drafts for other mock draft guys and girls. Like, no, they don't care what the people want. They're just trying to look smarter than the other people doing the mock draft.
It is the definition of like you're lining up for a 100-yard dash and you get down in your stance and the gun goes off. And instead of running, you look to your left and right. And you're like, which are you running? We're running? Okay, we're gonna run. Okay, go. And you're like every step, you're just kind of looking like, we're still going? Okay. Well,
that is so true, Mark. Oh my God.
And that is what mock draft. I used to say, Kevin O'Connor. This is like the weirdest compliment I think I've ever paid someone. Is like when he's a big NBA draft guy, as we know, and
right.
Every NBA draft season, I introduced Kevin on our show as the head of the draft human centipede, which is to say that like draft coverage is just like guys crapping into each other's mouths and it just goes around in a circle and you don't know who started it. Like who's the guy who first said Justin Fields is not, a top 5 lock? Who's the guy who threw that out there first? And in NBA circles, I believe that guy is Kevin O'Connor. So I introduced him as, this is the man at the head of the human centipede. He is crapping into all your other mock drafts.
That is so funny, Mark. So I think that the difference between, first of all, I have a Justin Fields rant that I'm going to go on.
Oh, I'm ready for it.
I know you are.
Yeah, I'll be ready for it. So
I have not only, this is maybe the first time in the history of the show that I have backed up my argument with stats. I have, I'm really going to go all in because I think the fact that people have Justin Fields falling to I saw someone be like, he could fall to 32. I was like,
Chris Sims, let's name him. Chris Sims said that.
Oh, was it? I couldn't remember because I blacked out from rage. But so let's put a pin in this because I do want to come back to that. Okay. But I think that to continue the idea of what the draft is, what draft season is at all, I think that the NBA draft you can pinpoint it to people. You can be like, okay, like KOC started that one, or you can be like, I think that came from Woj, or you know, but I think with the NFL, it is so insidious. Like a little piece of information, something like, hey, Joe Burrow's hands aren't quite as big as we thought they were. That can just that is the stick of dynamite in a lot of cases, which shows you how stupid it. Like that's not somebody starting something. That's a fact that comes out that then every single person runs with in a different direction.
And you're absolutely right. There is something about it that like the NFL feels like this goes all the way to the top, but you're not sure what's at the top.
Right.
You know? You're like, this is like crazy that like someone's getting orders from above saying like, this is the talking point of this draft, or like, this is the way the wind is blowing. And if you try to like figure out where it came from, no one knows.
It's like it's either
a Wizard
like
of Oz situation.
I was gonna say it's either a Wizard of Oz situation or it's like Goodell on Mount Sinai, like suggesting 10 commandments, but like not setting them in stone.
Here are the 10 commandments. Zach Wilson at number 2, etch it in stone.
Like what?
Also, Devontae Smith is too small.
I mean, what? That might be the only take from this year that I'm sort of like, well, I can see it. He's a Heisman winner. He was incredible in college. And everyone's like, you know, he's 160 pounds. He's not going to make it in the NFL. And I'm sort of like, normally any sort of weight or measurement or whatever, I'm like, shut up. You know, that's garbage. But then I'm like, he's a small man and I'm a little worried about him. I get maternal in that case.
Well, let's put a pin in that too, because I think for me there are two things that stand out going into this draft, and it's Devontae Smith and two people. It's Devontae Smith and Justin Fields. Like those are the two talking points. Those are the two water cooler guys of what, you know, if water coolers even exist in workplaces, you know. And this COVID.
Do workplaces even exist?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Workplaces even exist? But, you know, assuming that is the scene and you're just like trying to pretend like you want to talk to the draft with someone at work, you would bring it. So what would you do with Fields, man? Do you take him at 3 or is he late first round for you? And I feel the same about Devontae Smith, that his size is an issue. So I do want to talk about that. But
and then there are teams. There's the Pats and the Niners in terms of people being like, well, what do you think this? So we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second.
I just broad picture NFL draft, just to kind of bring it home what you're saying about how insidious all this stuff is, and where is it? You talk yourself out of prospects, but then guys like Trevor Lawrence, who has been the number 1 pick in this draft since he was like a sophomore in high school. It's been circled that when the 2021 draft comes along, Trevor Lawrence will be number 1. Most times when that's the case, when a guy is a surefire number 1 for that long, people start picking him apart and you find reasons to not take him number 1. And I really felt like at this point in the process, there would be a growing contingent of like, are we sure Trevor Lawrence is number 1? Obviously, I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying that that's how like this stuff works. And that's not happening. But it is just hilarious because I don't know. I think back to the Laramie Tunsil. That was the guy, right? The Ole Miss guy. That was
with the gas mask bong video thing that someone blackmailed him with during the draft. Yeah.
The NFL is just so preposterous, and everyone knows it's preposterous. But at the same time, like, you talk yourself into like some of these things do make sense. Like when Coward's talking about guys wearing their hat backwards, and I'm saying this with my hat backwards, by the way, as I'm talking about it.
Hey, don't tell him. Make him look on YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. Check it out on YouTube. I look very bro-y today, by the way. I'm
kind of into it. I don't know. It's not so much bro-y. I mean, it is a little bro-y, but it's like old school bro-y.
It's my vibe today was I'm wearing a Pepperdine sweatshirt and a backwards hat, and I think my vibe, and I got the long hair flowing, and I think my vibe is like I'm a beach volleyball guy. I think that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah. No, I think that checks out. I've got the same black sweatshirt on. I apparently wear every Wednesday, so here we are.
This is my move. I've been buying a lot of college crew necks and just wearing them. And I need you to let's can I just go on a slight diversion here because I need your opinion on this, Charlotte.
That's what the point of that's why we do this show, Mark.
I wear a lot of these college. I have a Pepperdine one. I have a San Diego State one. I wear every so often. I went to a game down there and enjoyed my time and just bought a sweatshirt and I'll wear it from time to time. I have a UCSB Santa Barbara because I love Santa Barbara so much.
You love Santa Barbara.
And I'll wear that sometime. The point is, I did not go to any of these schools. I do not know anybody that went to any of these schools. But I just like colleges in general. And I just like, and I feel like a poser. I just like, I like the energy of a college. I like a campus. I like the youthful vibe, the curiosity that comes from, like being in college and like, I want to learn something, And then I like, just the colors are cool. Pepperdine's got a cool little color scheme and the waves and everything. So my question, Charlotte, is this am I a loser for pulling this move? Just like throwing on different colleges and wearing around town. Do I have to have a story? If someone stops me and they're like, go Waves, man, is it okay if I'm just like, yeah, I didn't go to Pepperdine. I just kind of like the sweatshirt? Or is that
it is fine. And here's my take. I think if you are someone who wears random... Oh, I'm about to shoot myself in the foot here. I was going to say if you're someone who wears random pro team sweatshirts, that's a little weird.
That's bad, yeah.
But I'm going to amend that and say unless they're kind of funny vintage ones, because my favorite sweatshirt in the world is a 1994 Denver Broncos sweatshirt that has their entire schedule on the back. Like that, that to me is funny enough that people are like, why are you wearing a Broncos sweatshirt? And I'm like, because it has this schedule on the back and it has a cool vibe. And I think with colleges, like, I agree with you. You step foot on a college campus and there's an energy and an optimism and an excitement about kids who haven't yet screwed up their lives and think things are possible.
And the world has not crushed them yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think I actually, this speaks to me because first of all, I love a good crew neck. We're both wearing crew necks right now. And I love a crew neck that has that font, the exact font of the Pepperdine. And I also am really into orange. Like that's part of why I was so psyched. I got the logo
too, like the college seal. It like looks official and everything.
It's awesome. That's a sick sweatshirt. And when I applied to college, so high school was like interesting for me. Like I think I've said this before in the show. I got in a lot of trouble in high school, and not necessarily in big
drug.
No, I'm a big drug guy.
The marijuanas.
No, it wasn't even for like being a bad kid. It was for like talking back or and I really hated my high school. I'm going to be honest. It was very uptight, and so things that I thought were sort of funny or me having exuberance were seen as me being an asshole, and so I think I just sort of became an asshole about it. So I had sort of not the greatest record because of that. And I applied to, I think I applied to 16 colleges because my guidance counselor was like, you're going to have a tough time here.
You're not going to know any of these. So
yeah, she was basically like, this isn't going to go well for you. And I think I think my dad found out that she had like called schools and was like, I'm not sure this girl's worth taking a risk on. Like it was pretty bad. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy myself a sweatshirt of every college that I get into as either like a, screw you or a reward. And I ended up with 3 sweatshirts, Mark. So I don't think I have a lot of them still, but the bottom line is that no, it's totally fine to buy a sweatshirt from any random school.
That's 3 for 16 is not bad. That's what's that percentage? Is that like MLB? That's you're batting like 6th in an MLB lineup if you go 3 for 16, right?
Well,
like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, but I finally went to Colby where I got an off the wait list. Like I didn't even get in.
It doesn't matter.
So, exactly.
Does it say that on your diploma? Get out that diploma with the stink bug in it.
Well, I take some pride in it. It's like Tom Brady going in the 6th round. I'm like, and look at me now, and they're like, what? You're telling 69 jokes on the internet, and I'm like, exactly.
Suck it.
Yeah.
I decided my bit, or I don't know if it's a bit, but just what I'm gonna say to people when the haters come at me for wearing a Pepperdine sweatshirt and for appropriating Pepperdine culture and pretending that I'm a Pepperdine guy. I'm gonna do the LeBron James, Kobe Bryant move where I just say that was the school I was going to go to if not Ohio State.
Oh,
You
well,
know,
you
like
did
LeBron-
that to me before
I did
we
do
got
that.
on the show, and I believed
worked.
you.
It worked. So no matter what school I'm wearing, someone's be like, "Dude, San Diego State, what the hell?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I was gonna go there, but Ohio State called last second." And they're like, "Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that." That's what
And
LeBron
it works.
does.
It clearly works. If
Yeah.
it works on, well, if it
LeBron
works
was going
on
to go to
me, I don't
Ohio
know.
State. He was going to go to Duke. He was going to go
Right.
to Akron somehow. He was going to go
Oh,
everywhere.
that's
but
so good.
Anyway, the whole reason I brought this up is because I'm wearing a backwards hat, and I wanted to mention Colin Cowherd, or Colin.
Wow, yeah.
Colin,
Okay, let's
Colin,
circle
come on the
back.
show. I was gonna say how draft coverage analyzing football guys is so stupid. Like on the surface, you're not gonna take a guy because he wears a backwards hat or because his like hand is like a half inch too small. But it's something like we've all accepted, and there are enough data points throughout history that like I remember when Josh Rosen was about to get drafted. And like the problem, quote unquote, with him was like he cared about stuff outside of football.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I remember like reading about the coverage, if you want to call it that, of Josh Rosen and being like, this is ridiculous when I would read the headlines, but then you'd read the articles or read like the point of view and you're like, but I kind of get it.
Oh my God, I know.
You're talking me into it. You're making a good case here. And that's what I love about the NFL draft is like, I could be talked into anything. I could be talked into, the smallest thing of this guy's brother had a failed business 20 years ago. And that proves that the DNA in this family is a failure DNA.
Yes.
And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Do not roll the dice on this guy.
I know, Mark. It's funny. Even with the Josh Rosen is a great example because I remember being like, wait, so you're telling me there's a smart guy who has thoughts on like climate change and that's a problem, and then I read the article and I'm like, well, I come away being like, it could be a distraction in the locker room. It's a distraction in the locker room. I'm like, I see what you're saying, Mel Kiper. No, I'm kidding.
We should have started
Mel
that.
Mel sticks to sort of the physical stuff, but I love everyone. I've been listening to a few podcasts like mock draft podcasts or with all the guys who normally do this stuff, and it's like you could play an incredible drinking game by listening to a podcast, and every time someone says character issues, because that can go from anywhere from caring about global warming or climate change to
You care too much, you care too little, you care about the wrong things.
You have
a
long police record that may or may not be
Yes.
fair.
Yes.
Right? It's like it's a catch-all for like, ooh, that's it. It's not character sheet. What it really should be called is like PR problems, because the only reason teams don't take people with quote character issues, they're not really worried about the locker room. They're worried about what people who talk about it are going to say or what fans are going to say because like someone has quote unquote character issues.
Yeah, you just boil it down to character issues, which is a get out of jail free. Like if you're covering these guys and you don't know, you and I aren't smart enough to like suss through. Tate and I do this on our shows. We just say the situation. We stole that from Mike on the Jersey Shore. We'll just say, like,
Oh my God, right.
if there's like an ongoing investigation of a player or like
Yeah.
a coach is abusing his players or like, of course, the situation over there is still going on, and then that way like we address it without, because we're too stupid to like and,
Right. I'm like, I don't have like the social work background to be
Yeah.
able to talk about this without saying something wrong. So like the situation.
So mock draft people, it's like, is it caring about climate change or sexual assault allegations? It's all just character issue.
All
It's
a character
just, like,
issue, and it's also a
whatever it is,
distraction.
it's just a distraction in the locker. If it's Tim Tebow praying too much, distraction in the locker room. It's
Right.
Aaron Hernandez
Oh my
running with the
God.
wrong crowd, distraction in the locker room. You're like,
Oh my
what?
God, Aaron Hernandez! I
Anyway,
worked
moving on.
Well, I'm just gonna say quickly, I worked at the Boston Globe during that whole the Aaron Hernandez situation, and
There you go.
Our website traffic was just through the roof. That's all
Yeah.
I'll say. People clicked on that shit. So Mark, my question to you is, do you want to do a few headlines before we get to my Justin Fields rant and your
Please. Please.
Okay. All right. So, because there are a few things that happen. We talked about Shohei Ohtani last week being
Yep.
an absolute monster, and he became the first pitcher since Babe Ruth to start a game as a pitcher. Right. That's what I just
Yep,
said.
yep.
While leading MLB in home runs.
Yep.
So that's a thing.
I did that. I actually did that on my MLB The Show. I think it was 2018. That version of the show I did with my creative player. Yeah, my Road to the Show guy. So not impressed, honestly.
Well, also now this headline isn't true because it's happened.
I turned the sliders to all the way easy. I hit 700 home runs that season. Nobody talked about it. I don't understand. No, this is Shohei Ohtani. This is his nickname should just be since Babe Ruth. Like that is. I have a feeling we're gonna be doing this every week on the show. Where it's like, yeah. So this week Shohei Ohtani is the first guy since Babe Ruth to start twice.
Right. Well, this also hits on, not to get too meta about sports media in general, but this hits on my other favorite thing aside from draft season about like sort of the meta-ness of sports media, which is that there can be a stat for anything. So like at a certain point, we're going to run out of things that Ohtani's done first. And it's going to be like Ohtani is the first player to tie his left shoe while chewing big league chew after he hit a single.
Yep.
You know, like we're going to get weird with it.
That's how baseball works. And it weirdly, that works on me too, because I find that impressive because you start thinking about how many, there have been, if you gave me an over under on baseball games and you set it at like 7 trillion, I would pause. I'd be like, I don't know, that have happened throughout history. You know, I'm like, I mean, there are how many every single day for how many throughout the, like there might be 7 trillion baseball games. So when they do say that, when they're like the first left-handed guy on a Tuesday night in Oakland to throw a 3.5 hitter, I'm like, that's pretty crazy. I just witnessed history. Like I believe in that stuff. I'm like, wow, I can't believe that.
Like, you know, as a guy who loves history, I think that you should really lean into saying that everything that happens to you is witnessing history. Like today, you wearing a crew neck and a backwards hat on the show. We're witnessing history, folks.
You are witnessing history. The other thing that happens with those cherry pick stats is like you get to a point where you no longer want to compare to, say, Shohei Ohtani to Babe Ruth. So you just compare Shohei Ohtani to Shohei Ohtani. I feel like Steph Curry's getting into that territory where you're like, this is the first person to hit 12 threes in a game after hitting 10 threes in the game before since ... You guessed it, folks. Steph Curry 4 years ago.
You know what's so embarrassing though, Mark, is that like that works on me. Like to me, you know, sure, since Babe Ruth, but I was thinking about this before we hopped on here today, and I was like, you know, people are a lot healthier than they were a bajillion years ago when Babe Ruth was playing baseball. People are probably bigger because I think statistically everybody gets taller. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I'm taller than my mom, so that's science. And I think that it's just funny to compare guys today to guys who, you know, also like ran delicatessens while they were also playing baseball. You know what I mean? So I'm like, there's a little bit of a discrepancy here, but I mean, not to say that Babe Ruth wasn't incredible, and he's probably the most famous athlete name, but I also think that to me, when you get to a point, like if I ever get to a point where it's like, Charlotte Wilder is the first woman in sports media to tell a 420 joke on 420 3 times in a row since Charlotte Wilder 5 years ago, then I'll just be like, I have made it. You know, like that, when you start comparing someone to themselves is when I'm just like, well, Steph Curry is clearly the greatest basketball player of all time in that case. If he's being compared to himself, like, forget it. I'm on board.
You bringing up Babe Ruth playing against, maybe this is a different discussion for a different day. We should get back on draft stuff. But I'm always fascinated by like trying to compare guys throughout history. And I think one thing that baseball does not change. That baseball and golf are the two sports that they try to put out the exact. They want the sport to look the exact same as it did 150 years ago. So that way it's easier to compare like Sam Snead to Tiger Woods, or you know, like you want to compare these guys and Babe Ruth to Mike Trout, who's better. And it's like, well, the game has not changed at all, so we can compare them, but it obviously doesn't work that way. But at the same time, like hearing you talk about Babe Ruth, you know that he's like, he's hitting homers off of car mechanics every day. Exactly. You know, but the flip side of that is you also know that Babe Ruth was just like ripping cigs in between innings when he's not up to bat. And his diet regimen did not exist. He was not taking creatine and lifting weights.
That's a great point, Mark.
He was eating cold cuts as his pregame meal, and then ripping cigs and like drinking beers, and you know, like doing shots of whiskey. Like that was his every day. like, I mean, that literally was like that. That's Babe Ruth, like had a reputation for that, of being like a guy that just like had a good time, and I don't know. So I find that fact, because that makes it more impressive to me. Like, you know.
Totally, I agree. Like back then, they thought electrolytes came from moonshine. So you know, if he was doing what he was doing, that unhealthy, then I think I think maybe that evens out with the level of like, you know, bigness or like,
Bigness.
you know what I'm trying? You know what I mean? Where it's like you like these
Bigness.
like
I got into 3 out of 16 colleges. Fast forward 10 minutes, and she goes like the bigness, you know. Suck
You
a
know,
guidance counselor.
right.
Hey, everyone that said that Charlotte wouldn't amount to anything, she just used the word bigness in a podcast. So who's laughing now?
I am. I 100% am laughing now, mostly at myself. But no, I think you're right. I think that when you factor in the unhealthiness, that also, you know what, guys like Ted Williams were leaving baseball to go fly fighter planes in a war. Like Mike Trout, when was the last time you defeated a Nazi, right? Like, I mean, come on.
Am I the only one that thinks the troops could put together a team and beat the Yankees? I mean, if they really want to.
I 100% agree with you. Are you kidding me?
Last thing, and then we got to go back to NFL draft stuff. We have to. I insist. We simply do not have time to.
Okay,
to
well,
get off
I
topic
have
here.
2 more headlines that
Well,
I don't want to talk about them. I just want to mention them as it has to do with something we talked about last time.
well, I was gonna say this before you get to that, because this is gonna blow your mind, and it blew my mind yesterday. Because like yesterday, I think was like Babe Ruth Day or something in Major League Baseball, or I don't know. They anyway, Babe Ruth was like on. I stumbled across some threads on Twitter about Babe Ruth, and it ties in well with our talk earlier in the week about alternate history, because I found theories on the internet that seem credible enough to me, because whatever, that's how the internet works.
What's on the internet? Do you believe it?
There is a theory that Babe Ruth is at least partially black, that Babe Ruth has African American ancestry. And I fell into this rabbit hole yesterday, and I was left fully convinced.
Oh my God, I'm gonna look that up now.
You should look it up. Like he was very ahead of the times in terms of like he was going to like churches in Harlem and stuff, and he was he like I forget all the bullet points, so I'm gonna mess it all up and screw it. But it's an interesting, like you could find some fun stuff, and whether it's true or not, I guess like who really gives a damn. But
well, that's sort of the opposite of getting milkshake ducked. That's like, I assumed Babe Ruth was probably just like a horrible person because A, everybody turns out to be, and B, he lived so long ago. But it's so cool to me that maybe it's the opposite. And
there
maybe
were stories of him being like bullied in elementary school because they thought he was like partially black.
No way.
Like because his facial features and like his skin tone, like he had like a more olive skin tone. So like if you read like his biography, there were people like tweeting out snippets of like his biography where like he got bullied in elementary school, and it was like a fascinating rabbit hole I fell down. So I encourage you and our listeners, if you're into that sort of thing, to because I don't know, it's fun.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna check that out immediately. Actually, can we stop recording now so that I can go? The only two things, the thing that I wanted to bring up before we get back to the draft, because I have a lot of draft thoughts, is that there were 2 fighting headlines after I went on my rant about how like I can't really watch combat sports, which is that Conor McGregor sold a majority of his whiskey brand for $600 million, and also
horrible whiskey, by the way. Horrible whiskey.
Have you had it?
Yeah, it tastes like it's disgusting. It's not even.
I would think so.
Yeah, it's
and then
awful. Yeah,
they rescheduled the Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul fight, and I'm like, the only thing worse than that would be Floyd Mayweather fighting Jake Paul. And I'm like, and so I just thought that those were 2 like hilariously bad fighting headlines, and I wanted to read them to you. And also it made me think that you and I need to find a way to make something find a way to make something, it doesn't matter if it's good or not, and then just like sell it for a ton of money.
Yeah, I think that's how business works.
Well, can we do that? Like, if Conor McGregor can sell bad whiskey for $600 million, we have to be able to sell something.
Yeah, you have to if it's a service or something, you have to call it the Uber of blank.
Okay,
like,
so
you just have to come up with the Uber of blank. If you're making a show, if it's a creative endeavor, just call it the Seinfeld of blank.
okay.
And that works in the pitch. You're just like, so we have this idea for, I mean, like Rosenbaum, that could be the pitch. It's
I guess that's our thing, right?
What if it was Seinfeld, but with Looney Tunes? And like, that's not actually what the show is at all, but like, that's the pitch. And and people are like, okay, I'm in. I love Seinfeld. I love Looney Tunes. What's not to love?
I'm going to correct you on this. If it's a drama, if it's a comedy, that works. If it's a drama, it's The Sopranos.
The Sopranos. Yeah. What if this is The Sopranos?
Rosenbaum is
Looney Tunes.
The Sopranos of plus Looney Tunes.
So you come up with a service, like an idea for an app, and you just call it the Uber of, you're like, what if we invent the Uber for dogs? And you're like, what does that look like? You're like, I don't know. I mean, I guess they already did do that, right? Like, there are dog walking apps now that you can use to like.
Yeah, there's dog vacay where you can like babysit other people's dog. You know what we should do? Here's an idea. We could call it the Uber of going to the beach, and someone rolls your wagon for you with your stuff in it.
Uber of...
Or they deliver a wagon full of beer to you at the beach.
Full circle, because I think this was a Seinfeld idea. This was the Seinfeld episode. This is an Uber/Seinfeld crossover app idea of you go. George and Jerry were like their date assistants. Man, it's been a long time since I saw the episode. But Jerry was like, George said, I love my girlfriend. It's things are going well, but I wish like someone could carry the load for like the other garbage in the relationship that I don't have to deal with. And Jerry's like, what if I did that for you and you do that for me?
Wait,
There's like
what?
an Uber for relationships, Charlotte, is what I'm saying. Is like,
so like somebody else sends the flowers, or like somebody like the maintenance of a relationship.
The maintenance for like your girlfriend is like, work sucked today. You will not believe what Jessica said to me. And then you immediately, you're like, hey babe, hold that thought. You text the guy at Uber, and then you're like, hey, can I call you back in 5 minutes? Then you hang up, and then that guy calls, and then he's just the one on the phone that's like, wow, that sucks. Wow.
This is hitting a little too close. This is hitting a little close to home.
That's all you have to say.
This feels like conversations I have where I'll realize I've been talking for like 15 minutes about, the minutia of a Google Doc, and it's like, okay, sorry, and I'm like, damn, I'm doing
sorry
that.
happened.
Just over and over. All right,
back to it. Draft really quickly.
Also,
we simply do not.
No. We need to tell the people that we're doing a draft of drafts.
Yeah, we are. We're doing that. By the way, George Kittle is on the show. We're about to throw it to him here in like 15 minutes.
Maybe we should record something after and be like, put this at the top of the show. We're like, by the way, we have George Kittle.
By the way, we have George Kittle. That's how
it'll be in the headline, right?
It'll be in the title. You knew George Kittle was coming.
Yeah.
All right. To the two things in this year's draft, we'll quickly touch on them and then talk to George Kittle. Yep. Number one, Justin Fields.
Yep.
Your thoughts? Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for tossing to me, Mark. That is very kind of you, because I know you're a Justin Fields guy. You're an Ohio State guy. Here's the thing: is that Justin Fields in January was being talked about as though he was definitely going to be the number 2 pick, and there was even some speculation to the point where it was like, I mean, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, their stats are pretty close, and Ohio State beats Clemson in the Sugar Bowl, and
he outplays Trevor Lawrence.
He did. Yep. He did. He outplays Trevor Lawrence, and in 24 games, here are the stats that I'm going to throw at you, which is very impressive. In 24 games, Trevor Lawrence had 58 touchdown passes, 16 rushing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 7,192 total yards, 67.2 completion percentage. Okay, you think that's pretty good. All right, well, Justin Fields, who played 20 games since 2019, both of these guys, he had 56 touchdown passes, 14 rushing touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 5,552 total yards, 68.9% completion percentage. And if you even out the games, some of those stats, Justin Fields is better than Trevor Lawrence. And yet we're sitting here talking about Justin Fields slipping to potentially, pick 15. And I'm like, when and how did this happen? In the same way that you were saying Trevor Lawrence at number 1 hasn't really been questioned, which, yeah, I agree. He's a great quarterback. Like, I'm not saying he shouldn't be number 1. But Justin Fields has been questioned to the point that people have galaxy brained themselves into thinking that this guy isn't as good as he is. Also, something came out about how he's been managing his epilepsy, which, okay, people deal with shit. Like, he has not been affected by that in his college career. So why would he start to be affected by it? And it's one of those things that people are like, well, and that becomes one of those things that people are like, the situation. And it's like, it's not a situation. It's just not a situation. And to me, it is so frustrating that this has become the narrative. And who knows if it's true? It could be smoke screens. Like front offices love to put stuff out there that's like, oh, yeah, we're not taking Justin Field. Right. And there's been speculation that the Pats might try to trade up to, the 4th pick or to try to get him, which, I mean, oh, my God. Please. Oh my God. But
no. I can't have Justin Fields on the Patriot. That would
break your brain.
That would break my brain. That's nightmare scenario for me.
That is my dream. So we'll see who wins out. And I guess to put a bow on this, we don't know what's going to happen until draft night, obviously, but it is upsetting to me that this has become the narrative because it makes no sense at all.
There was a point in the season, granted it was very early in the season, but I think it was like 3 or 4 games in, where Justin Fields had more touchdown passes than incomplete passes. And it was like 3 or 4. It was a very small sample size, but still, like I remember watching, like, this is ridiculous. This guy's unbelievable. I will give you, as a guy who watched every snap that Justin Fields played at Ohio State, I will give you this in that, like, the one concern I would have with him is he does hold the ball. He goes through his reads. He holds the ball. He does not have a desire to want to throw the ball away and live to fight another down. He's a guy that like wants to, like, he's like, no, I don't want to get sacked. I don't want to just chuck it away. I'm not okay with that. So he'll hold on to the ball too long and then still get sacked and accept it. Instead of a 7-yard loss, it's now like a 15-yard loss.
Right. Justin Fields does go backwards a lot. I'll give you that.
He'll try to force stuff in because it's like, he's like, if I throw the ball away, that's a gain of 0. But what if I make this sick pass right here?
Right. Exactly. Right.
And we get a touchdown. Wouldn't that be sick? So like, if that's the criticism of him, that's fair. And I will listen to it. But yeah, it is weird because going into the start of this college football season, Trevor Lawrence was the number 1 pick. Trevor Lawrence was the best player in football. Justin Fields was the number 2 pick. He was also a Heisman contender. That was like the Heisman race. Devontae Smith obviously ended up winning the Heisman, but that seemed to be the Heisman race. That seemed to be the number 1, number 2 pick race. That was what the hierarchy of college football was. And Justin Fields was unbelievable. He outplayed Trevor Lawrence. That's not how it works. I understand that. Like they weren't like guarding each other in basketball terms, but he on the biggest stage, he played out of his mind. The national title game did not go Ohio State's way. Alabama was much better than Ohio State, but there was never at any point in the season, I say this as an Ohio State fan, where I was watching Justin Fields and I was like, man, he's not as good as I need him to be right now, or like he feels slightly overrated. He's by far the most talented quarterback Ohio State has ever produced, ever. And Ohio State is becoming famous for not having great quarterbacks pan out in the NFL. So I don't know how much of it's that too. Like, that's weird because you start talking yourself into that. You're like, yeah, I mean, I guess you go through history. Like, Art Schlichter in the 70s was never really that good of a quarterback out of Ohio State. So like,
I legitimately read something before this that was like, well, Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, Dwayne Haskins and it was wasn't
like,
good.
But they're not the same person.
They're not the same person. They're not the same. They play completely different, by the way. Yeah, it's all, I don't know. I'm very much a Justin Fields believer, but I'm also very biased, and I'm gonna defend my guy. But I would love it. Like the ultimate curveball to me would be he goes second to the Jets, and it just like all goes full circle, and he's like back to and Zach Wilson, because like Zach Wilson, who, you know, like I watched him play a couple times. He looks good. You could talk me into him being good as well, but like I don't understand why Zach Wilson is the surefire number 2.
I think because the Jets love quarterbacks Yeah, the Jets love quarterbacks who look like the '90s in the villain in a '90s sports movie. Like, I really think that there does become this sort of like, all right, well, what's the pattern we're seeing here? And sure, I totally do. I totally get, like you can say he held on to the ball too long because he often did. And there were some games where you were just sort of like, oh, Justin Fields had a come apart. But I don't think that he had more come aparts than Zach Wilson or Mac Jones, or like if the point of a draft is to take if the best guy's off the board, we'll take the next best guy who's better than the other guys. Like, I don't see an argument that Zach Wilson or Mac Jones are like far and away better than Justin Fields.
It's weird that Mac Jones is getting part of the story behind talking yourself into Mac Jones, who I like. I do like Mac Jones, and that was one of the more frustrating things about this Alabama team this year. Was like I do like Devontae
I
Smith
like
and
the
Najee
players.
Harris
They're
and Mac
really
Jones.
endearing.
They're cool, but it does feel like part of the argument for Mac Jones is he's a winner. Obviously, he won the national title as a starting quarterback, but. Not necessarily that he beat Justin Fields head to head, but that like the national title game, he didn't break a sweat, and
Right.
There's. I don't know. You put like a little stock into Mac Jones versus Justin Fields in the national title game and say, well, Mac Jones won, so we should. But then that same logic does not apply to Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence in the semifinal game when Justin Fields outplayed him. And I don't know. If your argument against Justin Fields is that he holds on to the ball too long and that is your concern and you don't think he goes through his progressions right, I will listen to it. If it is anything else, if it is like he's not a hard enough worker, which was like something that got thrown out, we're not sure if his skills will any of that, get it out of my face. I don't want to see it. If the Niners are smart, they will take him at number 3. I don't know what they are going to do. But that's how I see it. I don't understand. He should be number 2. He's the second best player in this draft, and he's not going to go second, and that's very strange to me. But whatever.
Especially for a team that desperately needs a quarterback because they just said theirs to the Panthers. I do also think that there is. What was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. Were we to use Mac Jones to the
Mac Jones. Back then, hoes didn't want me. Now I'm hot, hoes all on me. Back then.
I also love that Mac Jones sort of has a dad bod. Like, I found that really endearing. Yeah. But and this is what I was going to say is that a guy like Justin Fields, these players are very young still, and they're very coachable. And like you can learn to do things if you have a coaching staff like. Ohio State has an incredible coaching staff, don't get me wrong, but think about the coaching staff in the NFL where if you go to a good team, they probably have a really good coaching staff too, and you can work on those things. And so I just think like even if he sits behind some guy for 2 years, like I think Mahomes really benefited from that with sitting behind Alex Smith. Like, it's just like people get better. I don't know. Whatever, man.
Team Mom Charlotte Wilder is like, give him a chance.
I know. I just like
we go now to Charlotte Wilder. Kyle Pitts is going 4th to the Falcons. We now go to Charlotte Wilder to get her thoughts on the pick, and you're like, just like he's nice, you guys. He's nice, okay?
We should
give him a chance.
We should make T-shirts that say Team Mom. Charlotte Wilder, Team Mom. Oh my God, it's so true.
Should we talk to George Kittle? Let's have George Kittle on the show. All right, we're here with George Kittle, and the NFL draft obviously is going on this week. And George, it gets brought up many times over that the draft for a lot of athletes is one of the more memorable days in their life. With that in mind, thinking back on your draft experience in 2017, what do you remember? What is the big takeaway? What was that day like for you?
Oh, the biggest takeaway is that waiting to hear your name called really is not fun. Sitting there in a chair for 3 days and just for hours upon hours and because you're sitting there and you're like, hey, I think I'm a really good football player. I should get drafted. And then someone else gets drafted ahead of you. And you're just like, why would you draft him? Like, I'm right here. Like, call me. So that part gets old pretty quickly. But I forgot all of that as soon as I got the phone call and then a couple tequila shots into it, I had a great night at it, and it was really fun for me to get drafted. And but really for like all the kids that, their dream is to play in the NFL. So to get that phone call is incredible. And even because I have plenty of friends that were undrafted free agents that also said, hey, like that was an incredible phone call for me too, because I had an attempt to join an NFL football team. So just hearing your name called and being able to be a part of an NFL team, since there's only 32 of them in the world, it's pretty special.
I didn't think about it till you mentioned it, George, but you were day 3, you said? Like what? That's got to be extra agonizing.
I was like halfway through day 3.
That's got to be extra agonizing to have 2 full days of like watching the draft, and then you're going to bed that night. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, I definitely, because I had a chance, like my agent, obviously, all agents are like, hey, you're between the 3rd and the 6th round. Like you're somewhere in there. Yeah. But I'm like, all right, 3rd round. Like I'm interested. Like, and they have all the, like the picks at the end, like those extra comped picks. And I was like, all right, there's like 20 more picks. I got a shot. And next thing I know, it's 11 o'clock. And I'm just laying in bed like, all right, well, maybe I'm not getting that.
Could you get up and get snacks, or were you too worried to leave your phone? I feel like I would have just been glued to it. Like, what's the logistics of waiting to hear your name called?
Wow. Honestly, I mean, it's just, I had some friends and family that were there. We had like 15 people there at my house and just kind of hung out. And I basically just told everyone, please don't talk to me until after I get off the phone call. And I'm good after that. And so I was kind of completely by myself, sitting in a recliner chair, just eyes glued to the TV. It was fun.
We all know what's happened since you've been drafted. You are now the franchise guy for the 49ers, and on and on and on. All the accolades speak for themselves, George, at this point. But looking back on it now, as a guy who was taken in the 5th round, I'm curious, was that a chip on your shoulder situation? You said you took shots right after you were just excited to be a part of the team. Did some part of you have a chip on your shoulder? How many of the guys, I'll just cut straight to it. How many of the 145 guys taken before you do you remember, George? If I asked you to like name all of those guys, do you know them all by name?
Patrick Mahomes is pretty good. I think he's done really well for himself. McCaffrey's pretty good. I mean, there's a ton of guys that should have gotten drafted for me. I mean, I had 48 catches in college. And I was hurt a couple times. So like, I mean, I understand it. But I mean, do I have a chip on my shoulder? No. I was just more amazed at the fact that I actually got an opportunity to chase my dream. And so I just took it, I was like, I'm not going to take it for granted, and I'm going to do everything I can with this opportunity, because it's probably the only one I'm going to ever get that is actually like my dream as a 5-year-old kid and playing football in my backyard. So I just kind of ran with it, and I don't really have a chip on my shoulder. I just I love football so much that it's really easy for me to get motivated.
Mark, I think George is a better person than we are.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would not have taken that lightly.
No, don't say that about yourself. Positive vibes only.
That's amazing. So, George, you've been in the news quite a bit this week for probably what is one of the greatest interactions online, at least in the past year. When, Coach Shanahan said, when he was asked if Jimmy G was going to be the quarterback on Sunday, he said, I can't guarantee anybody in the world will be alive Sunday, which is like the most existential answer to a question I've ever heard. And you tweeted back, you said, what did you say? You said, I'll call you Sunday to let you know I'm alive, Coach.
I did. Yeah, I did. I said that. Well, just, hey, I got to let him know I'm alive. If like he doesn't think anyone's there, like I got to let him know he's not alone. But then like, did you see like Freezing Takes wrote on it, and they were like, hey, taking note of this. And I was like,
yeah, that's terrifying.
No, like, what are we doing? Don't say that. You guys stop it right now.
George,
like, stop it.
Now that you do have a little clout, obviously with your team, and you are kind of the franchise guy with the 49ers, the 49ers for us neutral people observing the NFL draft, that seems to be your team seems to be the big discussion point in this draft. That's the pivotal moment in this draft where things could go one way or another. And there's a lot of chatter around what your team should do with the 3rd pick. How do you, as the franchise guy, resist the urge to just be texting the front office at all times? Here are my thoughts. Here's what we have to do. Is that something you're doing? Are you in communication with what should be done with this pick?
Yeah. Right. Oh, don't do that. Don't Not shrug, really. George. Give us some intel.
I definitely like I always text my coaches. I'm like, hey, who are we drafting? And then my tight end starts like, I don't know. Like, why are you asking me? So then I'll call Kyle, hey, who are we drafting? He's like, I'm not telling you. And I was like, come on, give me something for the people. I'm kidding. Whatever John and Kyle decide to do, like I'm just excited to meet new teammates and get guys around in the building that want to win. So I'm looking forward to that. And when you have the 3rd overall pick, I think that kind of makes you you have kind of your choice of everybody around. And so you have the ability to bring someone in that can be a total game changer for the locker room, for the organization, for the whole team. So I'm looking forward to meeting whoever you drafted number 3, whether it's quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, D-line, whoever it is. I'm looking forward to meeting them.
So George, when you do you think that Jimmy G is going to be the quarterback on Sunday? And if you're not going to give us an answer, because I understand why you wouldn't give us an answer, like what would your Kyle Shanahan existential answer be? Like how would you have gotten out of answering that question?
That's a great question, Chuck. Good job.
That is a great question. So how would I have gotten out of that? What the reporter asked Kyle, like, hey, is Jimmy G going to be your quarterback on Sunday? Yeah. What would I say to that? Well, me being me, I'm going to say, I can't wait. Jimmy G is going to be my quarterback. And, unless we bring in, if we bring another quarterback for competition, then may the best man win. And I just want to be out there with the best possible team. And I think everybody on our team knows that. And I think everybody on our team trusts Kyle and John that they're going to make the best decision, for our team. And whether that's, like I said, quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, whoever we bring in, I can't wait to play with them and compete with them.
How are you so good, George, of living above the fray with the business that is the NFL? That you feel like a lot of these things could wear a guy down, and having to keep your head on, like if they do draft a tight end, are you suddenly worried about like where you seem to be just above all of it and just like, hey, whatever happens, and I'm here. How do you keep that spirit about you?
Well, I try to be as positive as I can, and I try to be an optimist about everything. So, I don't really, everything I get told or everything information I get, I always look at it with an open mind, and I try to look at it in the most positive light possible. Because when you think about things very negatively, that's just kind of hard on you all the time. And so I might be completely out of my mind and a little bit loopy, but I'm a very positive person. I'm very happy all the time. So I'll take that over being kind of a dick. So I'm okay with being nice and happy all the time.
That's amazing. I feel like I'm, like here I am paying therapists for years. I'm like, I should have just figured out whatever I want what George Kittle's taking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I will say, like, the reason I get to be confident in what I do and all that is the amount of hard work and like everything I put into the off season, everything I put into the season allows me to be confident in myself. I don't really, I was talking to someone a little bit ago about how I just, how I'm just happy to be me. Right. And so I work as hard as I can so that I can be me every single day, and I don't have to be someone I don't want to be. And I just, that started at Iowa, look at myself in the mirror a little bit and translated into being a pretty good NFL football player. And I'm just trying to get better and better.
A pretty good NFL football player, also a pretty good actor. I want to talk to you about the Kingsford commercial you were in. How did this come about? Whose idea? Did you pitch this to them? Because it felt like something that was so up your alley that it felt like you could convince me that you went to Kingsford. You're like, let me do this versus the other way around.
Right.
You're not entirely wrong. But so like they came to me like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And I looked at it and I was like, it wasn't as over the top as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like I've had a couple things pitched to me like that were so outrageous. I was like, yeah, like there's just no way I'm even going to try to touch that. But it was like, it wasn't too much in your face. It was fun. It was in my backyard, and it was with my buddy TJ Hawkinson. So I was like, hey, those are all positive things.
Yeah.
And, really, they're just like, hey, we have 100% hickory wood pellets, and you're a guy that shows off 100% all the time. Like you're always you. You're 100% authentic. And so we'd like you to talk about our 100% hickory wood pellets. And I was like, I would love to. That sounds really fun. And then they let me hit a bunch of wood pellet bags, the 50% wood pellets. I could hit those with steel chairs. I got to throw them against the wall. Like I was wrestling a bag of pellets, and I had an absolute blast. It was so much fun. And I got to eat all the food that I grilled after that too. So overall, it was a great experience. The 100% hickory wood pellets are incredible. Really beat out the competition. But yeah, it was fun for me. Is that enough of my plug?
That was a great plug. That was great.
I do have 2 questions though, George. Was that actually your backyard?
Yeah, that was my house.
That's amazing.
Awesome. I've done like 3 or 4 different things at my house. I don't like driving places. I like being home.
That's amazing. Like if someone's like, hey, will you be in this ad? And you're like, sure, do it at my house. And they're like, okay. My second question though is, in the ad, obviously you're wrestling. If anybody listening doesn't know, you're a huge WWE guy. I want to know what your favorite part of WrestleMania was. You couldn't go this year, but I'm assuming you watched it, and I want to know your thoughts.
Well, my favorite match is always like Seth Rollins is my favorite, just always and forever, just because he's an Iowa guy and I got to meet him a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
So I always love watching him fight. I've been a huge fan of Drew McIntyre, and I think his feud right now with Bobby Lashley, I like it a lot. I mean, they just beat the heck out of each other, which is really fun for me. So that's one I've really enjoyed. I like seeing Cesaro come up. I think, yeah, he wrestled Seth right at WrestleMania. So I like seeing Cesaro back in the mix. And then, but yeah, the Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley. And then I was watching Monday Night Raw last night and watching Braun Strowman in there too. So that'll be a fun little a 3-person match at what was it, Backlash. Can't wait.
There we go.
I said a WWE promo too.
Yeah, no kidding.
I got to get paid. This
is unbelievable. How much is your love of wrestling? I'm going to cut to the chase. As a guy who is a Midwestern guy who is scared to grow my hair out for the longest time, I have used this pandemic, George, to now grow my hair out. I have it in a man bun as you do. You are new to the long hair game-ish as well. Yeah. I'm curious, what is your strategy with this? Because I'm getting a lot of outside pressure from friends and family back home to cut the hair. What should I do? Should we hold strong? Look at that.
You have long hair, man. You're almost as long as mine. Look at that.
What is the plan, George? How often do you get it cut? How do you what is the strategy here? Because I want to follow your lead and your plan with this thing.
I haven't cut this hair in 2 years or a year and a half, I think is what I'm at right now. All I do, I just continually shave the sides down because I don't know what I would do with all that hair. I don't really have a plan for it. I just kind of let it be itself. You can tell by my beard, I haven't had a plan for this either. I just kind of trim the sides a little bit and I just let it do its thing. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm, just getting ready for my wrestling career after football.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh my God, I can't wait. You're going to be my favorite wrestler. Also, Mark, maybe you should think about shaving the sides now. Maybe I
should shave the sides. I think that's what I have to do. I have to start shaving the sides.
Do a bald fade. Looks the best.
Do the bald fade and keep it wet at all. George, you got to keep it wet at all times. That's the wrestling move too. Is like you always have a little moisture.
See, that is when you are watching wrestling and like they come out with the sleek back hair and then like after a 25-minute fight, it's dry and all poofy. I think that stuff's so funny. That's not fun. Like I would want to put it up in a bun at that point.
Well, George, we actually were talking about this last week on our show where we were like, what kind of oil do you think the wrestlers use? And Mark was like, I mean, obviously baby oil, right? And I was like, I was thinking olive. I'm not gonna lie.
They use something beyond water because like it's crazy how shiny. It's like I don't know. It's a whole new level. That's what you got to figure out. You got to get in there, George.
I think so. So fun fact, when I was in college, my senior year in high school, my entire family dressed up as WWE wrestlers. And then we went out as well because we had a buy in college, which was awesome. I think that's what it was. And and so I was Seth Rollins for Halloween. And my sister, I had a Seth Rollins wig, like with the blonde line in it, like back from when he was in the Shield.
Yeah.
And she just covered it in canola oil, covered it in just oil. And I was like, and she's like, it's going to look great. I put that thing on. It stained my shirt. I didn't throw the shirt away. It smelled so bad. The wig smelled so bad. Everything. I was like, thank you for almost ruining my whole night. Like I'd be at the bars. I was like, what does that smell? And I'd be like, wow, that guy over there puked. It's crazy.
Oh, my God.
No, it was my hair.
We appreciate you making time for us. We hope this draft experience this go round is more enjoyable than it was 4 years ago for you. Do you have any plans for the draft this year? Are you doing anything in particular? Just kind of watching it at home, chilling? And I mean,
I'm not gonna lie, I don't ever watch the draft because it just makes me think about all those guys that are just I don't ever watch it. I just follow on Twitter. Yeah. Like whenever the Niners are picking, I'll have the TV on, but I don't sit and watch it unless it's the Niners are picking. But at that point, I might FaceTime Kyle this year right before the number 3 pick gets in and say, hey, who'd we draft so I can tweet it out real quick.
Oh,
I gotta be
you should do that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. If
I gotta beat him with a punch one.
Well, best of luck with the journalism career. Best of luck with the WWE career. And if nothing else, you can always fall back to being all pro NFL tight end.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe if this football thing, you could ride this out for a little. Also, you're welcome as the People's tight end. You're welcome on the People's Sports Podcast literally anytime. So just say the word.
We're kind of hand in hand, aren't we? Like we should just be, I mean, whatever you guys want me back, I'll come back and I'll talk about anything. Like, I mean,
amazing.
Like I said, I live out here in Nashville by myself. And so like, I'm down to talk and hang out with some people.
We gotta get you on to talk Big Ten football, George. That's what we need is at the height of
I would love to talk Big Ten football. Get me talking about Nebraska Give me talk about Nebraska. I will roast them.
We'll both just crap on
out.
Nebraska
Don't
together.
care.
It'll be
And
fun.
I'll be sitting here pretending I know
It's
you guys
so
are talking
easy. Yeah. All you have to do is say "Go Big Red" every once in a while. That's all you got to say.
Okay. I'm
All
Go
right,
Big
thanks,
Red.
George.
I got it.
You're the best.
Bye, George.
See you guys.
Thank you. Thank you to George. He is always fun to talk to. I think it's very funny that was actually his backyard.
Yeah, it was. That is. It's a baller move to like do a commercial in your own house.
Yeah,
You
be
get
like,
paid
sure, I'll
for
do
it.
it, but you got to come to me.
Yeah, we should have asked him how much he got paid for it. That would have been, I'm sure he would have answered.
He was so good. George Kittle is like really great. You know, all athletes, if they're good at media training, are really good at not saying anything. But George Kittle finds like interesting ways to not say nothing, and I appreciate that about him.
He says nothing, but he makes you think he's saying something, and you laugh.
Right.
You and I are like cheesing along with him. We're like, oh, George.
And then after the interview, you're like, we learned literally nothing.
Like I asked him straight up, how often are you like talking to? I didn't ask him, who do you want the Niners to take? What do you want to do with the pick? I just asked simply like, are you engaging with your front office? Are you like, hey, here's what I think? And he's like, he shrugged his shoulders. He literally shrugged his shoulders.
I know. I'm like, okay, wow.
All right,
well, you know,
state secrets here.
he did say that when I interviewed him during the Super Bowl week, he was like, you know, he seems to really like Jimmy G, and he even told us, he was like, well, if it's up to me, Jimmy G is still the quarterback, so maybe they're buddies. Who
George
knows?
Kittle seems like a guy that likes everybody, though. I will say that.
That's
like, he
true.
does seem like a guy that, like, if I was playing quarterback for the Niners, he'd be like, yeah, man, he's a fun guy to get a beer with. And, like, you know, we just go, like, he's pretty fun, dude. Yeah, we, like, go to the beach sometimes together and have a kick-ass time. It's great. And
I wonder what it's like to live your life that way, because I don't like a lot of people.
yeah. And like every 49ers fan is like, Titus blows at quarterback. He's running our franchise into the ground. George Kittle's like, you don't know him like I do, man. Like, he's fun. He's a fun hang, though.
He's like, we talk about Stone Cold sometimes.
yeah. We watch Monday Night Raw together all the time. All right. You know what? Devontae Smith, I wanted to go on a rant about him, but there's not really a rant. It's just like, he's fun and I like him and I hope he's successful in the NFL and I think he will be. And I don't think he's too small and you do. But anyway,
I don't think he's too small. I'm worried about him.
You're worried about everyone. You're the team mom of these guys.
I am worried about
Devontae,
literally
I'm worried
everybody I
about
care
you.
about, whether they're an athlete or a person. I'm like, I'm worried about you. And they're like, I'm okay, and I'm like, well, I don't know about that. Okay, well, with
all
that
right.
said, should we do our
Let's
draft
do
of
it.
drafts?
Let's get into it. This is what we're doing. Let's end the show the only way we know how, which is with some dumb stuff that no one else in sports media would dare touch. And
Yes.
in this case, in honor of the NFL draft, which has been around since, you know what we should do to. I honestly don't know when the first NFL draft was. We should, to decide what the first pick of the NFL draft or of our draft is. We should guess when the original year of the NFL. When was the first
Okay.
NFL draft? What year?
Okay,
And
I'm ready.
I'll set the. What do we do it this way? Because like it's just going to be a Price is Right situation. No matter
No,
what
no,
you
no.
say, I'll just
No,
say
no,
1
no.
year older. What if I just set the over under and then you
Nope.
pick?
I'm
What?
gonna guess a year.
You're gonna
I
get
want
on
to
the
guess a year.
nose?
Yep. 1932.
Okay. Wow, 1932. Wow, that feels right.
I don't know.
My guess is also 1932.
You can't do that.
So looks like we tied. Okay, next coin flip maybe. No, I'm
Do you
gonna
think?
say.
Okay, I'm gonna say 1932, and you say before or after.
Yeah. Right.
And
right.
if you're right,
I'm gonna say after. I'm gonna
Okay.
say like a few years after, but the 30s makes sense. So I'll look it up right now. First
okay.
NFL draft, 1936.
Ah,
Let's go.
shit. 1932 felt really right. Okay,
Let's
fine. Go first.
All right, so I gotta
you
go
big
first.
dummy.
All right, so the NFL draft, 1936. It's been around forever. It is a tradition in American sports, but it is not, as we know, the only draft that exists. So today, what we are doing is we are drafting our favorite drafts.
And this is
It's
in
that
honor
simple.
of our goat debate.
Yes.
We did a goat debate, so we have to do a draft.
Okay, so I gotta pull up my big board here because I gotta see what I'm working with. All right, the thing about drafts, I want to say this, is that you got to think about what the other person wants to do as well,
Oh yeah.
because you don't.
Oh,
you
I
got to
did.
think of like value picks and like if I believe that Trey Lance is the best quarterback in this draft and I'm the 49ers, I don't take him at 3. I trade down because he's going to be available later. You know what I mean? Like, these are the things you have to think about. You can't just. So with that in mind, my first pick, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take the NBA draft as my number 1 pick. It was not number 1 on my big board, but I feel like it might be high on your big board. I am taking NBA draft, and the reason why it's the first one, for me, the NBA draft is better than the NFL draft. It's not because I like basketball more than football. It's because there's a lot of elements at play here, Charlotte. Number 1, it's all one night. It begins and ends all in the same night. Number 2, the trajectory of an NBA franchise can turn on a dime if you draft the right guy. Whereas in NFL, the wheels turn slower and you need to like hit a couple good draft picks. You got to hire the right coach. It's a very...
And the wheels usually come off before they go fast.
Yes. But on NBA draft night, if you're an NBA fan, you're crossing your fingers. If we hit the right guy tonight, next year our team could be much, much better and much more fun in the snap of a finger. And that's not always true of the NFL. Number 3, the fashion. The NBA guys have better fashion, or at least they think they do. And they show out in ways that the NFL guys don't quite get there. Some of the NFL guys try their best. Ezekiel Elliott had the crop top, and they get crazy with it. But the NBA guys are an entirely different breed. And number 4, you have Knicks fans booing every single pick at the NBA draft. So I think you put it all together. The NBA draft to me is the superior television experience as a sports fan. Even though football is more popular in this country, even though football, the NFL had the first draft before the NBA draft came along, I assume. I believe that the NBA draft is more fun for those reasons. So I'm taking it number 1.
Okay. I respect your pick. Then at number 2, I'm going to take the NFL draft.
Wow. Okay.
Because I truly, as we talked about, I love NFL draft season so much. And in the past, when we've been more able to go places, I've done some hilariously fun things for the NFL draft. Like when the Giants were picking 3rd, and I was at Sports Illustrated, my coworker Jessica Smetana and I went to Triona's, this bar in the West Village, and we captured a Giants fan on camera having an absolute meltdown when they took Daniel Jones and things like that. It's just like the beauty of like fans. It's the pure raw emotion.
Yeah.
But it's also that the NFL draft is hilarious to me because it is a 3-day long television show where you are watching executives make decisions off of spreadsheets. And that is to me probably the funniest possible, most ridiculous, and and fans go when it's not COVID, like fans go to watch their team make a personnel decision. That would be like showing up and throwing a party when your boss at your marketing firm is like, we are adding not 1, not 2, but maybe 3 to 5 new guys in the IT department. And everyone's like, yes, oh my God.
Yeah, one guy's booing. One guy's like, no.
And the CEO like gives a new employee a hug and everyone's like, we hate you. It's just really beautiful and pure in the stupidest way. So I'm going to go number 1, NFL draft.
The NFL draft's also like a war of attrition as a fan of you and your buddies sit down to watch the NFL draft. Everyone can do night 1. A lot of people can do night 2. Are you watching the 7th round? Are you a real fan like I am?
Right. Right.
As a reminder, by the way, I forgot about this until this morning. Do you remember that the NFL draft last year was supposed to be in Vegas and they were going to, at the Bellagio fountain, have like a boat bring the guys? What? Is the biggest winner in I don't even want to say it, but it's like that is something that'll be lost in the annals of time. Is like COVID ruined that, and I think if that happens, it is the most absurd thing we have ever seen. That guys are coming out on a boat in the Bellagio fountain. What?
I gotta tell you something, Mark.
Insane.
Not a single day goes by that I don't think about that. When I was doing the deal with Fox, my first big pitch was going to be, I am going to try to be the boat driver who drives the guys, because I have a boating license. I know what I'm doing.
Right.
If I can't be the driver, because I doubt they'll do that, maybe we can, because, you know, Fox is football. Like, we've got some access when it comes to the NFL. Maybe there would be a way to get me onto the boat where we could do a video piece and I could write about being on the boat that drove the prospects out to the state. Like, that, when COVID hit, my first thought was, oh my God, I hope my family and I don't die, and the people I love are okay, and I hope this isn't awful. And my second thought was, I am devastated that I can't do the boat pitch. I'm dead serious. Like, I think about that. I truly think about that, like, probably once a day or every other day.
That's it just speaks to the absurdity of the NFL draft. I mean, it is, and it's also speaking earlier of your Giants fan. I do think that NFL fandom is more personal. It is more like your identity is wrapped. There are more people, like, obviously more people like football in this country than basketball, but the percentage of football fans that have a tattoo of their favorite football team on their body is far higher than the percentage of basketball fans that have a tattoo of their, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's part of your soul cheering for the Giants. And so it means more if they draft, say, a Daniel Jones and you don't love the pick. It feels like less of like, my football team sucks, and it's more of like, this is an attack on me as a person, as a human being.
It is a personal attack. And I also think that NFL fans in general think that they're smarter than the GMs and the front office. I think NBA fans admit that, you know, guys like Daryl Morey do math better than they do. So they're like kind of okay with trusting the front office. And NFL fans truly think that if you put them in the war room, they would make a better decision than like Steve Keim.
I really do think so.
And it's incredible, and I love it. So that's my number one pick. I mean, number two pick.
My number two, I'm going to kick off the second round with, I'm going to say, let me look at the big board here again. I'm trying to think of like maybe taking things you might take. I'm going to say in-person fantasy football. In-person fantasy football draft. Online, get it out of my face. Not for me. I am very much a round two. I don't even play fantasy football anymore, but I somehow get stuck doing my friends' drafts for them. And because they'll like, I have friends that are in like 12 leagues, and then they're like, dude, can you do like my 7th league? Can you do the draft for me? And I'm like,
that's
sure,
hilarious.
it'll be fun.
I didn't know that. I thought that was just like basketball stuff for you.
No, it'll, I agree to do it, because I'm like, yeah, it'll scratch my itch. Like, I can kind of like get to know like who the guys that are highly valued in fantasy or whatever. And then that way I can like, you know, if I need to know that information, I can have it, but then I don't have to actually like do fantasy football. I
don't do it either, by the way. And I like read mock fantasy drafts so that if I have to for my job, I know what I'm talking about, but I can't stand fantasy football.
Fantasy football it's very, very frustrating, but, online drafts are stupid. I do one every single year from one of my friends, and I inevitably by round 3 have just clicked the auto draft. I'm like, this isn't half as fun as I want it to be, and then I just kind of let it ride. In person's fun though. Like, you go to a bar, you all get together, you go to a buddy's house, and you do it in person, and it's just like guys being dudes for the most part. At least that's what my leagues have always been when I've done in-person fantasy drafts. And it's less about like drafting and more about just hanging out with the dudes and the fellas. And I guess every so often there's maybe someone's wife is in the league and she'll show up. And but I don't know. I've only done it twice, but it was always like a ton of fun. And it's just like, and you can like boo in person someone's pick, and you can like punch guys in the arm if they take a guy that you wanted. And the whole scene is great, and I love it. And that's why it's number 2.
Okay.
In-person fantasy football. Yeah.
Okay. I dig it. My pick, is this the number? What pick
this
is
would be
this?
number 2. This would be number 2. Yeah.
Okay. My number 2 pick is a good final draft.
Okay.
Like, if I've written something that I am happy with, and I have a final draft of it that I know is going to be the thing that gets published, and I'm not embarrassed or worried about what the internet's going to think, it is an amazing feeling, because I'm like, I did my job. I did it well. I don't think I'm going to get yelled at on the internet. I think my bosses are going to be happy because I'm doing stuff, and we might get clicks for this. And it means that I have completed something and I don't have to keep writing it. And that is one of my favorite feelings. And I'm not quite yet not enough time has passed that I'm freaking out about what the next thing I'm going to write is. Like the moment I'm done, I'm like, we did it.
It is a very rare feeling to be done writing something and go back and read it and be like, this doesn't suck. Wow.
Yeah, or you're like, this kind of slaps. Like
this is like I'm not.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
This is not bad. Like wow, I killed it there. And then, yeah, I know what you mean. It's been a long time since I've had that feeling, but I remember
Mark.
those days. Charlotte.
I'm doing a reaction piece off of the draft, especially if the Pats, trade up and do something nuts. And I'm like, I really hope I don't hate this when it's done, but there's a good chance I do. All right, you go.
All right, final draft is good. I am going to with my third pick.
But no, wait, sorry. A good final draft.
Final draft. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
A good final draft. Bad final drafts aren't as good as good final
hate
drafts.
bad final drafts.
For my number 3 pick, I'm gonna go with draft beer. I think draft beer is the superior beer. I know this has become I don't know. In the circles I run in, there was a period of time where craft beer was like, that was all the rage. I have since like aged out of that. I think like I've gotten old enough to where I'm like, just give me a Coors Light. Like I do enjoy. I understand that it doesn't taste,
or perhaps a Dos Equis.
Or a Dos Equis. I understand it does not taste as good as the craft beer that has 700 calories in it and has been, handled with care for whatever. I understand that. I just want to like hammer some beers on the beach, so whatever. Yep. But the new debate, or like it's not really a debate, but it's just like the talking point is like, if you do say give me a Dos Equis or a Coors Light, and they say we have it on tap, we have it in bottles, we have it in cans, which one would you like? I always take draft. And some people, cans had a moment there, Charlotte, for a while. People swore by cans being better. People have sworn by bottles being better.
Yep.
I still like the draft, and I know there's gonna be a lot of people that write in and say like, don't do draft beers because I worked at a bar and we don't ever clean the taps and we don't ever clean the hoses and this and that, and like that's why cans are better. Just get a can and a glass, pop the can, pour it into the glass. That's the best way to do it. I say you're wrong. I say all of that flavor from the hose that you haven't cleaned in 7 years, that is part of the experience. I want to taste that in my beer. I want to build my immune system.
Okay, I was going to say, I just read an article in the New York Times that says if we sanitize too much, we're going to screw our immune systems over. Bacteria can be good. So yeah, I'm with you.
All of you that are getting the COVID vaccine and have adverse reactions to it, it's probably because you were not slamming draft beers. Yeah, you weren't going to college bars that haven't cleaned their lines ever in 30 years of existing and slamming cheap beers. And I think that's why my immune system is superior. And that's that.
If you ever drank a draft beer from Mainly Brews in Waterville, Maine, don't worry about what's in the vaccine.
That's the joke format. I forgot. There you go. Don't worry about what's in the vaccine.
Okay, this is the first one. So this is the first one I'm a little bummed about because I thought about taking it higher, but I probably well, you know what? Live and learn. Back to the big board. I also love a draft beer, like going to a bar and sitting down and like the bar is like gross and sweaty and someone gives you this like cold. I really want to go to a bar. Okay, anyway, in that vein, I am gonna take a draft. Wait. Hold on. I need to look at this. I need to reverse psychology you for a second. Okay,
Think
you know
about
what,
it, Charlotte.
I don't know. I think my next 2 top picks are going to be safe here. So I'm going to go with a draft nitro cold brew. The only thing more satisfying to me than a draft beer is the kind of iced coffee that comes out of a tap that's a little frothy, that is like injecting straight energy into your veins. It like makes your heart palpitate, but it's different from it. Like there's some sort of foaminess to it from the tap that makes it so good.
And it's just coffee. It's not like a latte.
But it's like with nitrate gas or something, so that it makes it sort of like I don't understand, Mark. I don't
like
know.
you're having a cup of coffee and a whippet at the same time. That's what you're telling.
Remember when we had a whole joke about
thought-
whippets that we had to cut out from one podcast?
It wasn't a joke. It was me.
Right, sorry, you're right.
It was me sharing a story.
Right. We had to cut that out.
We had
Anyway,
to cut out.
moving on. What's your pick?
So you're a cold brew person. I got into coffee, as I've told you, during the pandemic, and I'm strictly I've only ever had black coffee that's hot. That's it. That's all I've ever had.
No. It's special. So every morning I prefer hot coffee, but if it's like 2 p.m. and I have it's nice out and I go for a walk and I need a little pick me up, a cold brew is like an iced coffee is just. It's a special treat for me.
Okay. All right.
I'm such a loser.
I like it. The people. Cold brew does feel like the next evolution of coffee, and that people were like a lot of friends would be like, I'm running to Starbucks. Do you need anything? And I would say I don't drink coffee. And they'd be like, what? You don't what? How?
Right. And then you're like,
so now that I drink coffee,
yeah.
It's still not enough, and I feel like the next, those same friends are like, dude, hot coffee? What is this, like 1974? Are you a receptionist for Don Draper, dude? Like, what are you doing drinking black hot? Like, come on, dude. You gotta drink the nitro.
Awful.
Yeah. Yes. So I feel the urge to drink the cold brew, but at the same time, I'm like, that's not like, cause
give it a try. Try a draft nitro cold brew. You'll be wired.
that doesn't feel like what, like, for me, it's the aesthetic play. This is the draft beer thing too, is like, it's not about the taste of the beer. It's about the aesthetic. It's about Sam Malone hitting the tap, sliding the beer down to Norm at the corner of, at the corner bar seat. Like, that's the whole visual. That's the aesthetic I want to feel with the draft beer. That's what I want with the coffee too, is the pot. You got the guy coming. You got the lady coming around at the diner with 2 pots. You want decaf or the real stuff? And I'm like, come on, lady. And she's like, and then she pours that's what I want, Charlotte. So, anyway.
Yes, I know. But hear me out, Mark. The cold brew version can also be that, because there's like a layer of foaminess at the top, and you have it on a hot day, and you're holding it walking down the street, and you don't have to finish it, but you just have it. And it's something to hold, and it's like an activity to do or an excuse to go for a walk. Like, trust me, there is an aesthetic play that you will discover when you're older.
All right. When I'm older than you are.
I know.
All right, moving on. My 4th pick in this draft. I cannot believe this is still on the board. This should have been number 1. This was number 1 on my big board. I didn't think you'd take it though. So this is a
be my next pick.
This is my 4th pick is the drafting of the United States Constitution by James Madison.
Are you kidding me? That wasn't even on my list.
One of the all-time great drafts. He did not write the Constitution, Charlotte. He drafted it. It is a document that, as we know, has not needed to be changed at all since he wrote it.
I am losing it.
It was a very perfect piece of literature. It has been amended. That does not mean changed. That means amended. We've touched it up a few times. But if you want to change it now in 2021, you hate America. So don't you dare talk like that, because we do not change James Madison's great piece of work. No, there's some. What is the line of demarcation where things are no longer written, they are drafted? What year was that? It's got to be sometime in like the 1800s where
no.
They're still drafted today?
I think official documents are still drafted.
Oh, okay. So it's a legal setting. You're still drafting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I do feel like back in the day in the 1700s, you're drafting everything. Like, if you're just writing, if you had a quill pen and like a scroll, and you were just drawing a dick and you're gonna roll it up and like hand it to your friend, you would still say, I drafted this dick for you. Like, I still think the terminology was like, I drafted this.
That was funny, Mark. That was really funny. I didn't see that coming. You got me on that. Well, you know why? It's because they wrote on things called drafting tables.
There you go.
And architects still use drafting tables. And a drafting table is actually on my big board, but I don't want to take it. Right. I want to take, my next pick is how much a ship drafts. Which means...
I know what this means. I'm a sailor.
Right, because you're a sailor now. Which means, this is one of my favorite things in the world, is knowing how much of a boat exists beneath the water. It's the depth of the water needed to float a ship. So if the part of the boat underneath the water, say the keel is 8 feet, you're going to need a 9-foot draft. Like the draft is it's because otherwise it's grounded. And as someone who has hit many rocks with many motorboats, I get very excited when a boat has a very low draft. Like if you're in a little skiff, a little motorboat that has like a 1-foot draft, you don't really have to worry about too much unless something's sticking up out of the water. If you have a boat with maybe like 5 or 6 feet, I have really done some huge boatical damage before. So, and I'm such a nerd about boats that I love knowing what a boat, I'm like, what is that draft? You know, like how much is that? You know, like it's a really great question to ask someone who just bought a boat.
Great question. Also, if you're a newbie sailor like I am, to come across as a poser, like when I rent sailboats, when I'm up in Santa Barbara and I'm taking a boat out, I'll step on the boat and I'll turn around to like the guy who runs the joint. I'm like, yeah, what's the draft on this thing again?
Exactly.
And he'll tell me, and I say that as though I have any idea like what the layout of the harbor is. Like I know the clearance at any point within the harbor. I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, 6 feet, cool, got it.
And he's like, do you know where the ledges are? And you're like, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. That does me no good. But
yeah, so that's my next pick.
It also feels like some Aunt Char, when she's doing summer camp and she's teaching these kids how to sail, she would use the draft of the boat as some sort of analogy for life. To be like you should write a children's book about a boat that had a big draft and there's a lot going on under the water and everyone took it for granted and it looked like a small boat up top, but it actually had a lot of power underneath the water. And like you tell your kids this as you're teaching these 8-year-olds how to sail. You're reading, you're doing you have like a children's book that you're showing the pictures.
That's so cute. That's like the cutest thing I've ever heard. Oh, I love it. And it can be like, you never, don't judge a book by its cover, but also like there can be another boat that has a really small draft and it's doing great too because it can just skim over life's problems and but they're still friends and different people can be. Oh.
And there's the lesson to be learned in there, and I don't know. You'd have to, if you're gonna title a children's book, it has to be, you have to come up with an adjective and then an animal or a noun or like the like we could do it
like the
really
little
is like
engine
an
that
ad-lib.
could.
Yeah, it's the grumpy monkey or like the angry octopus.
Yeah,
and like that's the title. Also, a good way to title a sports bar, by the way, I found. Like you do like the.
Yeah. Wow. You could. Yeah. Because
the Hungry Horse, and it's like, yeah, that's a great bar. Meet me at the Hungry Horse.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wait. Now I'm thinking about all these bars that actually are that exact.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it's sports bar or children's book. You just do like the agitated frog. I guess agitated is probably a little too.
Hey, meet me at the frog.
The drunk frog.
Yeah. Which one? Oh, the agitated frog
one.
in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we'll write a sports book, a children's book about boats.
That's what we can really do and make money off of.
It's a great idea. It's the Uber of children's books.
How many more rounds are we
This
gonna
is the final round. This is
okay.
it. This is a for my final pick. I'm doing this draft that you and I are doing. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, you should have. I'm gonna.
There you go. It's not a bad idea for your final pick. My final pick. Yeah, why not? Let's get stupid. My final pick is the 2006 Indy 500 when Sam Hornish drafted Marco Andretti coming out of turn 4 and catapulted himself to a come-from-behind victory at the very last second to beat Marco Andretti. Is that what you had?
Shut up, Mark. My last pick was going to be drafting off of someone. Are you? I saved that for last because I was like, Mark is not going to have this one. What?
Let's go.
I was going to take that at number 1, and then I was like, no, I can save that.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid. Sam Hornish 2006 Indy 500. Go watch the finish. It's Marco Andretti. There's an Andretti curse at Indy at IMS with Indy 500, and Marco Andretti was running his first Indy 500. He was in the lead. His father was in third, I believe, and then Sam Hornish passes the dad, and then it's like Sam Hornish versus Marco Andretti, and then Marco runs like one of the worst final laps ever and has taken all the corners wrong and is very sloppy. Sam Hornish catches up, and then going into turn 4, Hornish just like drafts right behind him, and then at the very last stretch just goes whoop and goes right around him, wins the race. Sam Hornish Jr., 2006. That's my final pick. Good luck, Charlotte.
I am like, so mine was going to be, this is too similar to yours. This is going to count because I was like, my favorite thing in the world is if you're behind someone in a boat and you can draft off of their wake, you can like plane out and go super, super fast. Or if you're like, I used to swim a lot, and if you're behind someone in a lane, like it's a lot easier, and it's the greatest feeling in the world because you're going pretty fast, but you're not working. It's like one of those people movers in the airport where you're walking the normal pace but you feel like you're going really fast. God damn it, Mark. I should have known that we'd had like the weirdest one would be the same one that we had. All right. Well, okay. I'm going to take I truly cannot believe that. Okay. I'm torn between, I'm going to take the NHL expansion draft. Because I think it is so funny.
That's
the players when teams have to make players available for other teams, it's like the rudest thing in the world. Being like, it would be like if Fox Digital, if our boss Mike Buckland was like, okay, well, they're starting a new property, so we've got to farm some people off, and we're gonna make Mark Titus and Charlotte Wilder available, and we'd be like, are you kidding me?
No, he's like, yeah, Titus is available. Charlotte, no, hands off Charlotte. You cannot have Charlotte. And then, you can have him.
And I'm like, okay, well, now I don't have a podcast, and like, it really screws it. Like it, yeah. So, and I also just think it's funny. Like I'm not gonna lie, I watched the NHL expansion draft in, let's get specific. The 2017 NHL expansion draft, because that's when they gave Vegas a team. And I remember watching it and being like, there is no way this team is going to be good. And then they made it to the Stanley Cup. So that's why I love the NHL expansion draft, because it's the only draft where you can be like, there is no way this is going to work. And then it's like, well, surprise.
Surprise. It works. That's a good one. I like that.
Thanks.
That's a good sub. I'm sorry I took your pick, but at the same time, that's how drafts work, baby.
No, that's showbiz.
That's pretty good. Good list. Are there any other ones on your big board that we got to hit? I had I wrote down MLS Super Draft. I don't know if you're aware, but MLS, they don't draft players, they super draft them, and I find that hysterical.
They just put them into the league?
No, it's a draft. They just call it the super draft, and you're like, what's super about it? And they're like, we don't really know.
I thought it meant they just pick people and then teams have to figure it out later.
MLS is like stuck in the 90s when everything was extreme and super, and like we were talking about, or the guy in his 40s wearing a backwards hat is hosting the show. He's like, welcome kids to the
super draft,
to the 1997 MLS Super Draft, the most extreme draft yet.
I had things on my list that I didn't want. What was on your list that you didn't want? See, MLS Super Draft.
The last one I was gonna say was the first dodgeball draft you ever take part of in a PE class, which like sets the tone of your life for the rest of eternity. And everyone remembers that first moment when you're standing there and the teacher's like, in second grade, everyone line up. You two are the captains. And they're like, all right, now draft them. And like, you're standing on the line. You're like, for me, it was like, if I don't go first, I quit.
Mark, I'm not going to lie. I think that the entire reason I'm overconfident and like not overconfident, like I know that I'm at once very aware of my shortcomings and also confident enough to talk on the internet and in podcasts for a living, which like, it's a weird dichotomy because you gotta be like, somebody wants to hear this. And I think that part of it comes from, I was usually the first girl picked.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. Like, I think that is entirely where I can trace back to my belief in myself.
It all starts there. It all starts in second grade or first grade, whatever that first dodgeball. It's hard to...
Like
it's hard to shake that. You're stuck with like Harry Potter's sorting hat, Like that's like the sorting hat.
No,
you put it on,
1,000%.
Are you
that
cool
is
or
actually-
not cool? We find out today. And all right, you're not cool. You suck.
I'm gonna have to talk to my therapist about this because that is like truly revealed. Like being picked first was probably like, and it happened enough times that I was just like, try to mess with me now, folks, because I'm gonna be invincible for the rest of my life. I just wrote some down that I thought were funny that I just so I did have a drafting table on here. I had draft kombucha, which I wasn't gonna pick, but which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Draft cocktails, which I also don't like. The MLB
disgusting.
draft, because nobody ever knows when it is or when it's happening, or like MLB writers do, and everybody else is like, huh, I didn't. That's
Nobody
a thing.
ever knows where any of these like unless you go number 1 overall. I feel like you never hear about where a guy's drafted.
No,
like there's never
like people just pop up in the MLB.
like
and
Fernando
you're like, huh.
Tatis. I have no idea where he is. You could tell because it's not a discussion point. And like let me double check that he wasn't first. Go ahead, keep talking. He's gonna end up
Okay,
being
yeah,
first.
you fact check yourself. I also had a draft horse, a drafty window, which I hate. A second draft and a first draft, which I also hate, and the military draft, which terrified me when I turned 18 because I was convinced I was going to be drafted. Which...
Yeah, every male is supposed to still like sign up for the draft. So do you know that?
Yeah, and I was worried that we were progressive enough by the time that I got there that I was going to have to go. I was like, hold off on the women's lib thing until I age out of the military draft. So yeah, that's there we have it.
That was fun, Charlotte. We did it. This is the longest show we've ever done, I believe. But you know,
I was
there's a lot
thinking
to talk
that
about.
as we were doing it, but I was also like, I'm still having fun. Like
all
sometimes
right.
on a podcast, if it goes long, you're like, we got to wrap this up. But also, like, I've enjoyed this whole thing, Mark.
I don't know. It's a podcast, you know. Like people can tune in and tune out when they want, and someone will listen to this like 8 months from now, and you know, like I don't know. We all know how podcasts work. Who cares?
Right.
I love drafts. Drafts are fun. It was fun drafting with you. I've said it many times on this show and others that I get very rattled when I do drafts because I wouldn't know how to react. Like if I was a GM, if I was like the fourth, the Falcons aren't gonna. If I was a team that wanted to take, say, Justin Fields, and I'm certain he's going to fall to 10, say, or wherever it is, and he goes third, I would just have a panic attack, and I wouldn't know how to. If I was the GM, I would just be like,
Same.
well, screw that. I would just throw my papers in the air and be like, I quit. I
would have a
had
complete
plan.
come apart.
I have no plan B when it comes to drafts. Zero.
I would immediately
None.
start calling the team that got him and be like, hey, hear me out.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Are you? I heard he has character issues.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can't
that's
wait
the
to see what
show.
happens, and we will see you guys on Tuesday.
Email us. Send us emails. What drafts did we miss? What drafts do you enjoy? What were your NFL drafts out? Maybe we'll talk about the draft more next week. I don't know. Maybe something crazy will happen in the NFL draft this
I would love
coming
to.
weekend,
I
and,
love crazy things, Mark. All right.
we'll
The
talk
People's
about
Sports Podcast at gmail.com.
See you guys.
Hey pals, thanks for watching the People's Sports Podcast YouTube channel. For more of mine and Mark's very weird rabbit holes, stick around, watch more. You can subscribe, smash that subscribe button. You know you want to. We're going to give you all the weird stuff we possibly can.